In 1981, I went into the hospital to have arthroscopic surgery to repair some damage I'd done to my knee in an accident. And when I was there in the hospital, I was waiting to go into the surgery room, and I was very cold, and one of the nurses was kind enough to put a blanket on me, which made my body relax. I went into surgery, they put another blanket on, and I went out before the anesthesia. And the surgery went very well, and when I awakened, there was a great commotion in recovery. And I was curious about what was happening, but I tried not to pay attention because I was still involved in my own coming into awareness of my body and coming out of the anesthesia. And yet I was curious as to what was happening, so I turned my head to see, and there was obviously a person who was in trouble, and they were working feverishly to help this person. The doctors and the nurses were working on this person, and I hear them saying her name, which is Dianne. Dianne, wake up, Dianne. And I'm thinking, how very odd, it's the same name as mine. And a little while later, as I'm sort of groggy and coming out of my anesthesia even more, I hear them calling her by her first name because they're really trying to get her to come back. And they're saying, Dianne Sherman, wake up. And I'm like startled because that's my name. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they've got the wrong patient. And that's not her name, that's my name. So I'm saying to them, I'm here. I'm Dianne Sherman, and I'm here. And I'm fine. They're not paying attention to me. And I'm thinking, well, it's probably because they're busy. You know, they're very invested in what they're doing. They're trying to save this person's life, this woman's life, obviously. And the next thing I know, I'm at the bottom of the bed and I'm looking at her, and it is me. And I see them working on her, me, but I have no connection to it whatsoever. And from there, I floated up into the ceiling to the corner of the room, and I was overlooking what they were doing to her. And I didn't feel any discomfort. I didn't feel any loss. I didn't feel any fear in watching what was happening. I felt very comfortable being there instead of there. And then I was kind of extricated out of the room energetically and went into the tunnel. I had all the darkness and blackness in front of me. And I kept looking for a bit of light. And as I'm struggling to find just a glimmer of light, there was a glimmer all the way as far as I could see. And I focused on that glimmer of light because I felt safe knowing there was a little light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you would say. There was a little light, and that light started to grow and grow and grow, and pretty soon it was everywhere. I was encompassed in this gorgeous light. And as I moved through the light parted, and it was almost like billowy cloud kind of light. It was very ethereal and wafting, and I'm floating through it, and there are 2 rows of monks standing in front of me. And I say monks because they were in brown monks' robes with the hoods up. And as I floated between them, I could feel the unconditional love emanating from them. It would be a reference point for me in my life because I went all through Catholic school. Monks were always, to me, the gentlest of priests. And that was a comfort zone for me. And I had been to many of the missions, and there were always monks in the missions, and it was just a reference point for me. And as I got to the end, the one on the very end on the left stepped forward, and he spoke to me, and I say he because he had all that wonderful male energy of fatherliness and protectiveness and powerful and in charge. And he said, you cannot stay. It's not your time. You must go back. And I was begging and pleading at that point to say, I have finally come home. I can't go back. You can't send me back. This is what I've wanted my whole life. And he repeated, you cannot stay. You must go back. You have a child. And I did. My daughter was 6 years old, and I was divorced. And he said, you must go back. You have a child. You cannot stay. And I'm thinking to myself, who would take care of my child? And as I'm thinking about who would be the one to take care of my child the way I wanted her to be cared for, I was back in my body. And I awakened in my hospital room next to another patient, and I knew I had been changed forevermore. I have no idea why it occurs the way it does. It may have been a projection. I think it was just something that would be analogous to my life, that I would understand. I had ever wanted in life that sense of belonging, that sense of unconditional love, that sense of connection, these feelings of unconditional love that was blissful and joyful. And, we're all looking for love, and we have this idea that it's going to be everything. And I had been married and I loved my husband, but this transcended that so completely. I mean, there just aren't even words to talk about the kind of bliss that you feel. Well, at the time that I had the surgery, I was sort of knee-jerking through my life. I was divorced. I was in my early 30s. The work that I had been doing for 17 years was no longer available because I'd worked as a model and I was now too old. And I needed to find a new path. And I think the hardest part for me is that I was not feeling settled within myself. I was feeling like a failure because I'd been through divorce. Being raised Catholic, it was important to me to have stayed in a marriage, but this was untenable for me. So everything I knew had changed. My parents were gone. I just didn't have any grounding in that moment in time. And I didn't have hope for the future. And I was worried and concerned and frustrated and angry. And I was kind of in the victim role. Since the experience, I was allowed to have a great understanding of how it all works. That I'm not a victim. That life is happening through me, not to me, that my perceptions are indeed creating my reality, and I have a choice in every moment. Do I want to be happy? Having that sense of unconditional love, having the knowingness that we're not judged on any level. We are loved beyond the pair. You can't even quantify how much we're loved. And if that's our true reality, if that's what we have to look forward to, if that's what we're coming from, why wouldn't I find that within myself here? And that was what I set out to do, was to understand how I could create that kind of heavenly experience here in human form. I realized it was possible. I realized I didn't have to die to have that. And I was picking up everybody's information. I could hear people. I could sense them. I could read them. I knew where their pain was. I knew what their stories were. I also was knowing things that I couldn't know about people that were coming to them, that were going to be coming in the future. The kinesthetic part of it is something I think I've had, but it just got exacerbated in this experience. And that is the energy and the information. It comes through my pores. I feel everything. I have to be careful when I see movies and TV shows that there's nothing violent or whatnot, because I feel it. I feel the pain. I feel the discomfort. I feel it all. And part of my job is to mirror that back to people so that they get a sense of who they really are, not who the ego has told them, not who life has shown them to be, but who they really are at the core. Everybody's connected to the source. These are places and experiences that our language just doesn't cover. All I can say is that you feel so at one with everything that is. You feel a sense of knowledge about everything that is. It's like you've connected into the universal wisdom, the universal source of love. It's so satisfying, and that's such a bad terminology for it, but it's so, you're in bliss. We don't have the sensitivity to speak about divine. It's something, it's like rapture. It's something that we look towards, but it's not something we know how to quantify. You can only be in it. That's the best part of what I do. It's allowing people to see the truth of what they're carrying inside. You know, we all have a belief system about ourselves and our experiences. And part of the work that I do is to change the perceptions of what they've really experienced, to reframe it so that they can experience it or own it in a different way. And it takes the sting out of it. It takes the pressure out of it. And it allows them to be more open to a fuller experience. And the vibrational work that I do helps to eliminate the blocks and barriers. I think the universe is very playful. I mean, you can think about angels, fairies, you know, devic forces, whatever you want to call it, guides, masters. I think there are these wonderful energies around us that play with us. I think they're trying to lighten us up. I think, listen, we're supposed to be here having a good time. And I think at times they're kind of playing with us in order to say, come on, let's have some fun. Let's get silly. Let's stop being so serious. Let's lighten up. And I appreciate the fact that I'm able to look at this and work with it and understand that, all right, so today I'm a little nervous about it, but tomorrow I'm going to be better. And each time I honored it and worked with it and talked to it and said, okay, so what are the steps I need to take to make myself feel stronger about it? To trust that Spirit's got my back and that my needs are met every day. And that's the big trick, is understanding that God, Source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is here all the time supporting us in all of our desires. And we have to trust and relax into that. We're always trying to control it and push through things. We need to just get our hands off of it and go for the ride. You believe in the negativity it's spewing out. You know, we gave the ego a dictate a long time ago that it was the ego's job to protect us from hurt. And so the ego's always telling us, don't do that. You're going to get hurt, or you're not big enough to do that, or you don't have enough talent to do that. And that's not the truth. Now, Spirit on the other side and our intuition on the other side is constantly feeding us good suggestions, supporting us in knowing that we are good enough, big enough, strong, whatever it is. And that's what we pay attention to. We pay attention to the positive, not the negative.